internal investigation. He was promoted to full-time refereeing in January after 10 years as a part-time referee across the Kingston Press Championship and also in Kingston Press League One. Now, is this associated with the whole...
Yes, Silverwood. He was Silverwood's partner in crime on the...
Is his wingman?
Yeah, in the sort of Newcastle city centre handsy endeavours.
Right.
But we don't know too much about any of that sort of stuff, and the sort of... The spin on the press release has been, quite positive in that, he's done a good job and he's going to look for other stuff.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shame. It's not long after he became a full-time referee. He was a younger referee, and obviously there must have seen some promise. He got given the full-time gig ahead of all these other ones that have now been
brought through,
that they're bringing through. So, whatever. Good luck to him outside of Rugby League, and we don't want people who going to get us in trouble anyway, really, with stuff, do we?
No, absolutely. Okay, Papua New Guinea will be coached by Michael Marham at the 2017 World Cup. It has been confirmed. PNG RFL chairman Sandis Saka told media in the Pacific nation that the governing body's board had ratified the appointment at a recent meeting. Marham led the Cumals to a win in the Pacific Test with Fiji in May. So, bit of stability for Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, and they've got something in position now for a year and a half's time, and that's good for them. They can build, because they've got a couple of home fixtures, haven't they, in that tournament? So positive.
Yeah, absolutely. But especially with the whole kind of Malmaninga thing as well, it's nice to see them getting someone who's
moving on,
a bit more committed to the role and moving ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Staying down under then, Jared Haynes says he is devastated after going back on a promise to rejoin boyhood club Parramatta Eels. The 28-year-old has instead joined their NRL rivals, the Gold Coast Titans, on his return to Rugby League in a deal reportedly worth up to £1.37 million, the biggest in the competition's history. Haynes had said that he would only return to the NRL to play for the Eels when he quit in 2014 to play American football. Having played American football in the NFL for the San Francisco 49ers in 2015, Hayne was unsuccessful in an attempt to secure a place in Fiji's Rugby 7 teams for the Rio Olympics. He then held discussions with the Australian Rugby Union over a move to Super Rugby before deciding that a return to the NRL. Hayne's 2-year deal with the Titans is worth a reported 1.2 million Australian dollars per season. He said, "I'm truly sorry for disappointing all the Parramatta fans, players and the club that have been with me from the start." Hayne did play for the Eels from 2006 to 2014, scoring 103 tries in 176 appearances. He went on to say that this has been a very difficult decision for me, and I'm devastated as any fan that I won't be pulling on the blue and gold jersey this year. So, the whole crack with this was basically what the NRL wanted to get rid of quite a large proportion of the Parramatta board, and that hasn't happened, and that's why he's not been able to sign for Parramatta. Or is it a budget thing? Or
the talk is the money was just bigger from the Gold Coast.
Right.
The Gold Coast are shifting around the squad. I think a couple of their backs look likely to be on the way to Super League next year. Names like Mead and what's the other, Hoffman and people like that have been linked with moves to Super League for sure. So that opens up some cap space and opens up positions for Hayne to play in. He made his debut obviously this weekend, and more on that in the NRL roundup. Sean Bruiser got in touch. He said, "I bet the Gold Coast Titans fans feel extra special that Hayne doesn't really want to play for them." #devastated.
Well, they'll get over it. I think the real reason that he signed for them is that he gets the opportunity to line up alongside Dan Sargentson next year, and that was maybe what pushed him over the edge.
Well, he had to be honest, though, he had to come out with something because of all the talk about Paramount, and he couldn't come out and sort of throw the club under the bus by saying they didn't offer me enough money, and that sort of throws himself into a negative light with their fans, whereas he'll want to be remembered as the two-time Dally M winning star fullback that they had. So, just a word on how ridiculous it is, how it's so easy for him to come back in, but how good he actually made it to get into the NRL. Yeah. Sorry, the NFL.
Yes, that is a hell of an achievement, isn't it? In
what was a very short turnaround of, just under a year, he managed to get himself a starting job as a returner and some time in actual game time for the first month or so of the season before a couple of little setbacks, and then ended up on the training squad. But how many people go for in America want to be NFL players, and this bloke rocks up from a different sport.
Yeah.
Okay, the ball shape is similar, but
other than that,
there's very different ways of carrying the ball, and I think he found some of those with some of the stumbling blocks. But well done to him, and then he had a crack at something else and didn't quite pull through.
Yeah, Sevens wasn't quite for him, was it?
I think it's more that the Fiji Sevens team is so good that it was difficult for him to break into it, because they're one of the favourites, aren't they, for the gold medal?
And you would suggest that if the money had been right and he had decided to go into rugby union, that he would have carved up in a manner similar to guys like Izzy Folau and Carmichael Hunt, and been equally as creditable cross-court player as they were.
He could have played any sort of.
But basically, play pretty much any
ball sport, because it's got that good physicality. But it's back with us, which is great for the sport.
Absolutely. And finally, the United States has submitted a bid for the 2021 Rugby League World Cup as it seeks to host the tournament for the first time. England, which hosted the tournament in 2013, has already announced it will bid for 2021. The US proposal has been put forward by Sydney-based sports marketing company Mall Sports International. If the bid is successful, it will be the first time the competition has been held outside Australasia and Europe since it began in 1954. Interesting one.
Yeah, interesting for a number of reasons, I suppose. The first thing that makes it interesting is 2021 is going to be expanded competition.
Yeah.
So whether testing that expanded model in a new market is sensible or not, I'm not sure. It might actually be a boost for it, because people won't know so much about the successful model that 2013 and we hope 2017 will run. But at the same time, you want it to be somewhere where there's going to be some interest, and there's going to be some sort of ability to organise the event, like, because 2013 showed that. But the other thing that's interesting for me, from our perspective, is what about all this government funding that's been promised towards the bid and stuff for the UK, for the game in the UK? Is that contingent on us getting the competition?
Yeah,
because that's important. So we spoke about it, didn't we, about a month or so ago? It's £15 million,
which is a lot of money for this sport, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I suspect it might well be contingent on getting a World Cup in,
or at least being in a front-running position in the bidding process. It is good that the game is expanded enough for the interest in a different country to be, hey, let's try and host it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a World Cup too soon.
I wonder how gimmicky this is, and how much of this is really more of an advertising calling card for this marketing company in Australia. If it had been something that had come from within, USARL, then I might give this a bit more credence, but I just wonder who the big driver is, whether it is in fact the Americans, or whether or not it's just something that's kind of been done as a way of drawing attention, not necessarily to the sport in America, but to to this prominent marketing company.
They've staged like baseball games in Australia. They want to stage NRL or State of Origin games in America, don't they, this company? I think the USARL are better focused on building their own domestic competition and having an arm that looks at heritage players to represent them in the next World Cup. To be honest, than looking at a bid. So I think it's a positive that the US bid is from an outside area to that can possibly link in a positive way without the USARL being strained by trying to put it together. But like I say, I think that relationship maybe wouldn't be strong enough yet. I think it's a World Cup too soon for.
I was going to say, sitting here on the 8th of August 2016, do you think the USA will get it?
No.
Me neither. Okay. Right, that's the news from around the world of Rugby League taken care of. Let's take a look back now at round 1 of the Super 8s. Okay, so to round 1 of the Super 8s, and we'll start on Thursday night over in Warrington, where St Helens survived the late Wolves fight back in the first of the weekend's fixtures and denied Warrington the chance to move top of the table. Saints looking as good as I believe they've been all season, really, in this one. I think it's probably one of the more complete performances from what I understand. What say you, Mark?
I think they were better than they were in the Wigan game, because their half-backs offered more of an attacking threat consistently throughout the game. It was an exciting game. I enjoyed watching it. There were mistakes.
It's not what I want to hear, Mark.
There were mistakes, but it was quite...
It was a turgid knock-on-a-thon, I hear nothing else.
It was quite fast. Certainly the first quarter of the game seemed like the stall was set out for faster rucks than you were getting, but what you'd actually got off the back of that, though, to be honest, was Warrington narrowed their game plan down and simply attacked from the ruck, and when they tried to get it wide... You know, we talked about Curry and Hughes before. I think this was possibly the worst game I've seen both of them play this season. I don't think either of them was massively effective, despite Hughes getting a try. And Sandow seemed to pick up a knock at some point on a kick chase through towards the end of the first half, I think it was, which hampered him a little bit, and Gidley wasn't as assured. So whilst they were so good down the middle, when they tried to get it wider, there wasn't quite the crispness that you'd be wanting to see if you're a Warrington fan. Whereas for Saints, particularly Jordan Turner, ran the ball strongly, passed the ball well. They had options off the back of him. Their use of John Wilkin as an option on the last play sort of frees up a little bit Jordan Turner when he's in the halves, and he actually had a really strong game. Probably the notable standout performer actually outside of the pack as a group. But all of their forwards played pretty well. Even old Grubby Rubberface played quite well. Still
karate.
Still winding people up, obviously.
Absolutely.
So Saints really, it was the control of the game, the kicking game, and the fact that they had a little bit more dimension to them than Warrington. I felt that saw them through, but it was an exciting game. It went right down to the wire, as it were, because of the Rhys Evans no try, which, to be honest, was so close. I mean, he did seem to touch the sideline with his sort of ankle as it rolled, but it was. You'd think a winger rather than a centre on the wing might have flicked his feet up or something. I don't know, but it was so close. Just a matter of brushing a blade of grass with his ankle as it tilted over, sort of thing. It was very exciting, right to the death, which is kind of what you want to see throughout these Super 8s amongst the top sides.
Fantastic. So, what did the stats tell us about this one then?
A stat to note from this one actually was Warrington had 40 runs from dummy half, so even by their standard that's a lot of dummy half runs, most by any side in the game this year. They also made 106 more metres at half a metre per carry better average gain. They made 2 fewer handling errors than the Saints and even had 1% better tackle success. The only major stat they lost on was penalty count, 10 conceded to 8. Given that a penalty goal was what separated the sides on the scoreboard, penalties was an important stat. We talking about sort of penalties and niggles and that, I suppose we talk about the LMS Jack Hughes eye gouge situation that you won't have seen.
No.
Very similar to what occurred with Ablett and Greenwood the other week, and similarly the RFL disciplinary have taken no action. It wasn't a gouge, but the hand and the fingers were remarkably close to the eyes that a possibility of an injury was there to occur, and I think, something needs to be done to stop this hands in faces scenario. That seems, people aren't punching each other necessarily. Well, they are in the qualifiers, but we'll get to that later. But but I think there's a chance, even if you're not trying to gouge the guy, that you get a finger jammed in there with the way you've sort of rubbed his fingers across his eyebrow.
You can't be raking people's faces like that.
And I think it's kind of like what's the term where one criminal backs up another criminal. What's the like honour amongst thieves sort of situation?
Right.
One.
I wasn't trying to leave you hanging. I had no idea where you were going.
One sort of player who instigates a bit of grubbiness when he's got a bit back isn't going to push too much that he gouged me, because he doesn't want the same to come back on him when he does his next nasty little bit.
Honour amongst thieves.
That's the one.
There we go. Right, excellent. We'd make a good team on some game show that required that.
Okay.
Level of mental.
But it wasn't a gouge, but it was unnecessary. It was a little bit careless, bordering on reckless in terms of what could have been the outcome of it, and I think he should have been charged, just as I think Ablett should have been the other week.
There you go. Okay, so let's talk about individuals who performed well then. Who stood out for us?
Well, Kyle Amos keeps standing up for St Helens. People talk more about probably his prop partner, Walmsley, because he's a bit more all action, but